Time for today's High Beam Talk with the Doc. And it's being brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy at 240 East 3rd Street in downtown Uhrichsville. Mako's is your local pharmacy with a caring and knowledgeable staff focused on your health and wellness. And, of course, we welcome Dr. Tim McKnight this morning. Hello there.
Hey, Brad.
So we always appreciate you coming in and helping us out. I appreciate it. I kind of enjoy this knowledge. I try to soak it in, but then not act like an expert later.
I think we all probably are guilty of that a little bit. You know, we know what we're supposed to do. We don't always do it.
Yeah, it's a fine line there between, My dad had a saying, do as I say, not as I do. So I think that helps a lot.
Well, yep.
And today, we should stay hydrated, and we know that, and we've heard in the ancient past that you were supposed to drink 8 glasses of water a day and all kinds of things. But is hydration all water? And how are you approaching this? What should we do about hydration?
Well, hydration is water, and of course we can get water in foods that we eat as well, and fruits and all kinds of foods. But what's interesting to me about water is water has energy in it, and if you dehydrate your body, completely dehydrate it, you will, or if you dehydrate a plant, it will stop functioning, right? You take all the water out. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is if you could look inside your cell is busy. It's moving. You've got parts moving, just like our bodies are moving all the time. Our cells are moving all the time. The cells are dividing. Proteins are being made. Things are being broken down. There's a digestive system in each cell. And all this movement requires water. If you take water out of a cell, completely dehydrate it in a lab, everything stops, right? So that tells us we need water for enzymes to move and for things to function and things to happen. And when we start to get dehydrated, those enzyme activities and that activity in the cells start to slow down, and we feel the effects of it. Just a small amount of dehydration can cause us to not think as clear and to get headaches and to be nauseous and to have heat exhaustion and then heat stroke, which is a life-threatening situation.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people think of, like, dehydrated, must have passed out. Your stage is on the way to that.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. I feel dehydrated now. My mouth is a little dry, and I actually had a big glass of water about an hour ago. So we wake up dehydrated, no question. I mean, we haven't had any intake overnight, and when we breathe, we respire, we're breathing out carbon dioxide. We're also breathing out water. So that's one way to dehydrate. And then we get up and go to the bathroom and dehydrate through the urine. So we're constantly fighting this state of dehydration, and we don't think about it until we really start to feel thirsty. But by the time you're thirsty, you're probably already 5% dehydrated. So you really have to catch up with that.
To finish your morning routine thing, the next thing most of us do is drink caffeine, which makes it even worse.
Right, that's right. It's a diuretic. Anything with caffeine in it is a diuretic. You'll notice that when you're in the bathroom going after you had your coffee. So it's really important that we stay hydrated. One of the first, probably the most common treatments that we give in the emergency department is IV hydration. We give you fluid back, because sometimes that'll help your nausea, sometimes that'll help your pain, sometimes that'll help your general biochemistry. You start feeling better. So I find that a really interesting therapeutic approach, but it can be really helpful. So again, we just have to always be cognizant of the fact that what we're doing is dehydrating ourselves. And water, of course, is the best way to hydrate those cells. But like I said, water has energy in it. We can measure that energy, which to me is fascinating. And some waters have a better energy quality than others. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be careful. Most of us don't drink tap water because it doesn't taste good. It's because of the chlorine in it. But it's also not the cleanest and purest type of water. I mean, the water treatment plants remove most of the impurities and virtually all of the microbes that could cause problems for us. But it doesn't mean it's pure. It means it's clean enough to, take a shower in or wash our dishes. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best for us to drink. So then we have to find other ways to purify our water. And there's all kinds of opinions and approaches on that. But again, I'm stressing the importance of hydration for our cells to function.
I see old westerns where they're drinking right out of the creek.
Yeah.
Is that still better for you if you're about to keel over? I assume at least one drink. But
I think you have to be really careful. You have to be sure that the water is pure, because there are bacteria and protozoa an amoebas in the water that can make you sick. So you got to be really careful of that. I was talking to somebody yesterday who has a spring on his land, and it goes through a sedimentation process that removes the dirt. But my question was, well, what about the microbes and the other things? And he says, well, we have to boil it. So I mean, that tells us, it's pure water in a sense, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily free just of microbes and other bad things. Just because it looks clean doesn't mean it's safe.
So in the last 20 or so years, we've taken to buying bottled water. Those are not all equal, are they?
They're not all equal, and unfortunately, bottled water is not something that I recommend because the plastic that holds the water is made of petroleum-based products, and those can be leached into the water. And a lot of the petroleum-based molecules that go into the water have estrogen-like activity, and in a bad way. So women who have fibroid tumors and have hysterectomies and all the hormonal imbalances we see now with men with low T and women with issues with PMS and severe symptoms of menopause, that's just one of the contributors is drinking water that's been bottled in petroleum-based plastic. It's not the only reason for those conditions, but it contributes to them. So I'm not really a fan of bottled water. I'll drink it when I have to if there's nothing else, but I try to avoid it. So you get the cleanest water you can, whether you use a Brita filter or you drink some type of a crystal water. Almost every form of water you buy is going to be in a plastic type of a bottle. So It's tough. I personally have a water ionizer that takes water from my sink and cleans it, filters it first, and then it charges the water, and it splits the water. And in the charging process with 200 millivolts of electricity, it actually adds hydrogen gas to the water, which when I drank this glass this morning, it was kind of bubbly. It was cloudy, and those little gas bubbles were hydrogen gas. I can hold a match to the stream of water coming out, and it'll combust, it'll crack and pop. And that is rich in antioxidants. It's clean. It's been purified, and it's if you measure the antioxidant properties, it's very rich in antioxidants. So it's healthy. These machines are an investment, though. This is a $4,000 machine, but I don't need any other form of water. I don't have to buy bottled water. I take it in a stainless steel Yeti to work every day, and that's what I drink. So to me, it's a good alternative, but for a lot of people, that's a pretty hefty investment.
Right. So dehydration, what is the most common ailment that could come from that, would you say?
Well, my father is in the hospital now for this very problem.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I think he's doing better, but he had a bad urinary infection, and he didn't realize it at the time, but he wasn't able to empty his bladder. So his oral intake for water had diminished. And he was drinking a little bit of Dr. Pepper, and that was about it. He was very dehydrated. And the day he went in the hospital, he was extremely confused. It took him 2 or 3 days to clear up mentally, and that was with IV hydration and taking care of the obstructive process in the bladder so he could empty. So mental status changes are common, and the extreme for that is, we go from heat exhaustion, where you're nauseous, you got a headache, you're sweating, you're hot, you feel tired. And you see this at the ball fields all the time with young kids in the summertime when they're real hot. And you'll see them looking hot and looking awful, not feeling good. Mm-hmm. But from that, you can quickly go to heat stroke, which is when the thermostat in your body breaks and you can't cool off with sweating. You stop sweating, and the heat rises in your body, and you become extremely dehydrated. And these mental status changes are severe. I was with a boy at a scout camp that went from heat exhaustion to heat stroke within 30 minutes. And by the time he was in heat stroke, we were trying to cool him off, pour water on him, have him drink water, and he was running from us, crying, trying to run away in the woods. He was that confused. This is a medical emergency. We called the emergency squad and took him to the hospital and had him, basically saved his life because it's dangerous.
Well, Ohio State tackle Corey Stringer died of that. Yes. As a professional player.
Right. And so you can't hydrate too much when you're sweating and playing sports. and so usually the trainers are making sure that the athletes are constantly drinking. But the message for all of us is we should always be we should never be thirsty. If we're thirsty, sometimes we'll open the refrigerator. What am I craving? Well, I think I'll have some grapefruit. I'll have some applesauce. When you're craving foods that have a lot of water content in it, it could be a sign that your body's saying, I need
the water.
fluid. I don't need the calories. Give me a glass of water first. Then let me see if I still want those type of foods that have calories.
Is that a tip? Should you drink something first and maybe you're not hungry or
Absolutely.
thirsty?
I think first thing in the morning, you should have at least 16 ounces of water. Before every meal, you should drink 16 ounces. Just get that in, hydrate first, and then listen to what your body's saying. Maybe you don't need as much food as you think you do. Maybe it's hydration is what you're looking for. We can live weeks without food, but we can only live a few days without water and staying hydrated. So, again, you can't overemphasize the importance of water intake and hydration.
Right. Yeah, leave that water depletion to the camels. They have the hump.
Right. They got the storage. But, our kidneys, our bodies are pretty amazing. Our kidneys can help us retain water when we get dehydrated. But, again, it's risky to allow that to progress. Interesting that infants that are their skin is so soft and so smooth and they're so healthy, they're about 75% water. But by the time we're, senior citizens, we're more like 60% water. And it's obvious because the elderly, they don't make as many tears. They don't have as much saliva. Their mouth is more dry. And it's evident. But that's a real group of people that really needs to hydrate well and constantly be thinking about it. But men often who can't urinate well because of enlarged prostates, they will self-dehydrate just so they don't have to go through that discomfort of a bladder that's swelling and won't empty, which was the case of my dad.
Yeah.
So, and my grandfather had the same thing, and he actually passed out and was on the floor for 10 hours because he was so dehydrated, so weak, and then he got the bladder infection. So men in particular need to really stay hydrated. And if the prostate is obstructing the bladder outlet, you really need to fix that because you just can't risk that type of a problem.
Right. Well, hey, thanks for the tips, and got my water glass out there. I'm ready to go now.
Good.
Thanks a lot. Dr. Tim McKnight, as always, here as we talk with the doc on our 8:30 High Beam this Tuesday morning.